Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux. It's Arkansas Derby Saturday at Oaklawn Park, and we're going to kick off a 50-cent pick four sequence with race number 10. This is the Matron Stakes, some nice fillies and mares going 3/4 of a mile. Let's take a peek at this field. There is an extremely talented runner on the outside. Who is your filly? We know her. She is already a graded stakes winner. We haven't seen her since the Breeders' Cup Distaff. She has all the credentials in this race, but not without questions. She's returning off of a little bit of a layoff at a much shorter distance than what she's used to.
You mentioned a significant cutback in distance, a new track, Oaklawn Park, a layoff. There's a lot going on, and she's a 4-year-old filly. And sometimes we see from the 3-year-old to the 4-year-old season a big progression. You can even go back further, right? Obviously, her 2-year-old season was very impressive, and then putting together a 3 sort of trailed off later in the year. So she's got a lot going on in here, and I think she's 9 other rivals where there's some intriguing ones, or maybe horses that are going to take a step up. Others that I think are going to get tested for class. I do think this is a really great betting event, top to bottom.
Now, she has shown speed going 2 turns in her career. Let's see where our friends at Timeform US have her after the opening quarter mile of this sprint. And they have her pretty well back in this race because there are some very fleet fillies, including the Southern California Invader, the 8 Daddy's Ruby, who took him gate to wire in the La Brea going 7/8 of a mile. Backyard Money, that horse is likely going to show speed. Her best races have come up front. And Mucho Macho Girl is a horse that I think they tried to rate last time out. I think she's more comfortable when she's close to the pace.
I agree. And I think, we might see American Band a little bit
Mm.
close to it as well, which you can see kind of in the 4th spot here in terms of maybe the early leaders. But Daddy's Ruby, that adage of California speed, it holds here. She's coming out of the fastest races, if you want to go by times for the opening quarters and the halves and those, and she wants to be forward. So it's going to be interesting to see what she can do now coming to Oaklawn Park. She's never shipped outside of California.
Although the number one Backyard Money is stepping up out of a second level allowance race, you could argue it's a lateral move considering the horse that beat her in the race will show you, Taxed, is a graded stakes caliber filly in her own right. Backyard Money chased a pretty fast pace in this race while down towards the inside. She's going to try hard to run third, but Taxed was ready off the layoff.
Yeah, and Tax we know has a very impressive resume under her belt from her 3-year-old campaign, and what she's been able to do so far this year. And I think Backyard Money runs a good race. I guess is good enough here. She is 0 for 4 this year, and I think in terms of her races, she usually kind of chalks it up and tosses it in late, and that's a concern for me. Just knowing that there are some horses that look like they can sit off of it, they can be comfortable rating and make a late move. And I think we talked about it when we talked about the time form pace projections. In some ways, she might just have to go with the inside draw. It doesn't maybe set up that nicely for her.
The number 2 Traverse reeled off 4 wins from 5 starts towards the end of 2022 into 2023, then was thrown to the wolves in some tough spots at Keeneland and Delaware. I like that they gave her a break. They returned her sprinting off of a lengthy layoff, and she ran quite well in a race that could be construed as just a prep.
I really like her effort last time out. I think when we looked at the time form pace projection, she's going to close from off of it. If the pace is hot, this can set up for her. Now, last time when she closed, it was off track, and she had 8 other competitors there. But in terms of the trip that she got, I thought it was a good starting point. And this is a horse that at least she has a sprint under her belt. We talked about Hoosier Filly cutting back in distance. This filly, or I should say, this mare did the same, but she already has that sprint race under her belt, and we saw what she was able to do. And I think she can now take a step forward.
If you take away the recent wet track efforts from the number 3 Chandana, you're left with, I think, 5 consecutive exacta finishes. She seems to run much better on fast going, including a good runner-up effort, first off the Randy Morse Claim in stakes competition at Oaklawn. Now, this race looks a lot tougher than the Poinsettia, but it's nice to know that if you give Chandana a little bit of a pace, she can kick on at a price, and maybe she livens up your single race exotics.
Maybe she does, and maybe it comes down to kind of her stalking style. She likes to be a couple of lengths off the pace and make the late run. I think you talked about the surface. Over those wet tracks, she's just been a little bit further back than she prefers to be, and you wonder if she doesn't like the kickback in her face and what's going on. It's a little bit different when you compare that off track to a fast track. So if you're looking for a price horse in the exotics, I think she does make a lot of sense. if you have the budget to include her.
It's possible we've seen the best from many of these fillies and mares already. I'm not sure if that's the case for the 4 Mucho Macho Girl. She's only been to the post 5 times, a very lightly raced 4-year-old. Looked so good at the fairgrounds over the winter. They tried her in the carousel. She ran okay to be 3rd. She's going to have to call upon some of that upside potential to turn the tables on 2 of those rivals.
I agree. And I think, there are some unknowns with her. I would have liked to see just a bit more last time out. I know it was her first kind of outing at Oaklawn Park, but she did not only kind of take a step backward in terms of finish, obviously, but her figures decreased significantly. And I guess she's been lucky. Her 2 tries at the fairgrounds, she didn't have to tackle an off track or anything like that. And you're seeing strong numbers from her. But I just wonder what she'll need to do to make a difference. You look at the efforts, say 3 back when she was able to pick up her second career victory. The fractions are probably softer than she's going to see here. So I think once again, like last time, she's going to be forced to sit off it.
While Chandana prefers fast going, there's a case to be made that Mailloux, the number 5, steps up on a wet track. She really earned a big Beyer speed figure when finishing 2nd against New York bred stakes competition 3 starts back. And then in her most recent race, an open 2nd level allowance, she earned a big 89 Beyer speed figure. All that despite stumbling at the start and then rushing up into a pretty solid pace. I don't think this was the best field she beat, but you have to respect the Beyers she's earning. This is a big class test for Nacho Correas.
It is. And you talk about Correas here, not afraid to ship this mare. She's been sort of everywhere. She used to be sort of a New York mainstay, and now she's been to Colonial, Churchill, Belmont and Aqueduct, Oaklawn Park and Aqueduct again. So to me, they've taken some shots with her. They've probably picked their spots strategically. And I agree. I don't think she necessarily faced the toughest of fields last time out, but from a numbers perspective, she certainly catches your eye. And even though she hasn't necessarily won when she's been a little further back, she does show some adaptability where she's been able to sit a little further back. We saw that 2 starts back at Oaklawn over the muddy track, where then she tried to make a late run. I just think she was second best behind Back to Ohio. So nice to see her get a win since that effort and take a step forward.
Zeitlos is the number 6, and I think patience has paid off for the Steve Asmussen barn. She's taken this very well-bred filly and has just given her time to get through her conditions, get her confidence. She's now won 3 straight and is a stakes winner. Here's her score in the carousel at odds on last time out, and it's a very likable effort because she was in behind horses, and once she gets to the clear, she settles it quickly.
Yeah, she angled out really nicely here, and she's just going to kind of mow down the 3 rivals that were in front of her. Draws clear nicely. Tyler Gaffaleon booked to ride again and was aboard her here in the carousel. And honestly, she's done nothing wrong besides the debut where we can see things went awry from the get-go. She's been a very consistent type. I agree that she's getting better as she goes along. And I think looking at just the trips that she's been able to carve, regardless of the pace in here, I think she is just so hardy and true that she's going to get kind of that setup that she needs because she's adaptable. And I keep on using that word here, but with her, I really think what she's been able to do so far, she's probably one of the most impressive visually and on paper.
I think the number 7 Royal Spy is a bit of a sleeper in this race. This horse ran 4th in the La Brea behind Daddy's Ruby, but again was wired that day over a track that I thought was really speed favoring. And then in the American Beauty, the race we're going to show you right now, it was a slow-paced race. The horse that was controlling the pace, Alva Star, is odds on and is very, very good. And Royal Spa is still closing despite being against the race flow.
It's going to get second here. And, Alva Star was the horse to beat. I mean, this is a horse that raced like she should have. So I don't discount her effort at all. I thought she raced very well. She's been a horse that, she's had some so-so performances, but they've tried different things with her. And I think she really wants to sprint. 6 furlongs has been very kind to her. They tried her at a mile and a 16th. It didn't pan out. And that was actually at Oaklawn Park as well. So from what we've seen in those other 2 performances locally, she's respectable in here.
Here's the Grade 1 winning Daddy's Ruby, who took the La Brea 2 starts back, then went back in against Calbreds last time out in the Spring Fever Stakes. She showed speed in that race, her usual early speed. She just didn't have it in the stretch against Big Pond, who's a nice Calbred sprinter as well. I think it's very interesting that Peter Miller's going to try to put the blinkers on here. She already has plenty of early speed. She's the speed of the speed. The question is, what kind of breather does she get?
Yeah, the blinkers on is a little interesting. You mentioned she has the speed. So what's the thought process here? Is it a focus thing? Who knows exactly what it is? I just think last time out, she just tired in there. I think she was overmatched. I know she's beaten Big Pond before, but Big Prontomy is maybe a step higher than her. With that said, her early speed is her best asset, especially in this field. I do think she's the fastest horse on paper. So assuming she breaks well and can kind of get to the front, if she gets out there easy, the concern is, can anyone catch her? She's going to, other rivals in here hopefully will press her if you're going against her, because she could be loose on the lead.
American Band is the number 9, and this horse will be stepping up into a stake for the first time, but she certainly deserves the opportunity. She's won 5 of her last 6 starts, including this very game effort in first level allowance over a wet track. She was on the pace and working hard throughout. It looks like she's in a little bit of deep water, but she just refuses to lose and is actually getting away from them at the end.
Man, you gotta love, if you claimed her for $12,500, how quickly you've made the return. And with those waiver claiming races, they were able to kind of protect her in those 2 starts. And now to win this race, this isn't easy to do at Oaklawn. The purses are big, the competition's tough, and she absolutely raced very well, was a little bit more forward than she usually is. But I thought it was a big performance. So, you can't fault them for taking a shot with her now.
And then to round out this quality field, you've got the horse to beat, and who's your filly? She's the class of the field. She's going to turn back to 1 turn for the first time since her career debut, which she won at 5.5 furlongs. So maybe sprinting is what she wants all along. She's been kind of a in and outer, which is a bit of a worry for me. There have been times where she looks like a mortal lock on paper and she gets beat. But if she shows up with her best race and appreciates sprinting, she's going to be tough. I don't know how short of a price I want to take.
Yeah, it's tough. For me, when you have a horse like this, we know that at her best, she has a ton of talent, but there's a lot of new things happening. You might say, oh, she went 7/8. 7/8 at Charlestown is very different than other places sprinting. So she didn't also perform well off the layoff in that. And I think looking at her going back, she's typically needed at least a race. So at what I figure could be a short price, just based on her class alone, I can't endorse her here, just knowing I'd rather watch what happens. She wins, she wins. But for me, there's a lot going against her.
I agree with that take. If she wins, she wins. Let's try to find value elsewhere. Let's take a look at our top picks for the Matron, the first leg of a 50-cent pick 4 on Arkansas Derby Saturday. Zeitlos is your top selection in this race. Good tactical speed, might get a setup. Just seems like her confidence is sky high.
You said it all. I mean, that's sort of the thought process here. I think she's really coming into herself now as she continues to develop as a 4-year-old. And I just think wherever she is placed early, she's still going to give that big effort in the end. And hopefully it's good enough to win.
We're going to find out if Mailloux is good enough to win. By her speed figures say she's certainly fast enough to win this race, but can she do it against tougher company on a fast track? I think the price might be fair. I'll give her an opportunity. Zeitlos and Asmussen for Ashley, Mailloux and Nacho for me, and the Matron at Oaklawn on Saturday. Good luck.